I'm making this video because I've heard people ask the question, but I have yet to see someone really give a good answer. And the question is, how do you keep all your tactical gear powered if, for whatever reason, you don't have access to electricity or a huge supply of spare batteries? All your tactical lights, IR laser, NVGs, thermal, all that cool stuff, it gives you a huge advantage. But if you can't keep it all charged, then you lose that advantage pretty quick. So I'm going to show you exactly what I have set up here. It's a lightweight solar kit with rechargeable batteries, and I did a ton of research to figure out exactly which solar panel and which power bank were the best, and which rechargeable batteries wouldn't mess up certain electronics. And just FYI, I bought all this stuff with my own money because it's the best stuff I could find for this use case. I don't have any sponsors swaying my opinion on anything. And all that said, first I want to talk about when you would use this. So in the military, guys typically just carry extra batteries because in the recent past, most guys have been operating out of FOBs, and you've got piles of batteries, you got vehicles, you've got whatever support you need. But I'm talking here mostly to civilians who need to be able to self-sustain in a bad situation. So when might you need something like this? Well, if the grid goes down, or there's an EMP, a solar flare, whatever, and you've got this kit tucked away in a Faraday bag, you would have a pretty big advantage defending your family, your home, neighborhood from all the gangs or the and invading. Just kidding. Here's an example that might be more likely. You respond to a natural disaster, and there's plenty of that going around lately. I've got a buddy who, a few years back, he went to help out in Texas after Hurricane Harvey, and things were pretty bad for a little while. The group he went with, they were asked by local law enforcement if they had guys with guns who could help provide security and be an armed presence in some of the neighborhoods that had a lot of looting going on. My buddy was told, if you shoot someone, just let us know where the body is and we'll come and pick it up later. So they ended up hanging out in these dark neighborhoods at night, wishing they had stuff like night vision. They weren't super kitted out. They had weapon-mounted lights, but that was it. And there was no electricity at the time, so even if they did have nods, or especially anything thermal, that would have been cool, but they would have run out of power pretty quick. So let's talk about how this kit can solve that issue. First off, I keep the whole kit in an ultralight waterproof bag. This one is made by Sea to Summit. It's a 20-liter bag and it weighs 2 ounces. I tend to keep stuff in separate dry bags, and even though everything in here is in another bag or container, you never know what you could be getting into, especially if it's a natural disaster kind of situation. I have a buddy whose team, during a military training exercise, they spent more than 8 hours moving through a swamp, mostly at night, and even though their stuff was waterproofed, it wasn't waterproofed enough, and they ended up destroying something like $30,000 worth of radios and electronics. That is a bad day. Anyways, in this bag, first thing, this is an 18-watt folding solar panel made by Dark Energy, who I feel like they don't get talked about a lot, except maybe in the hunting community a little bit. This is the best panel I've found. It's the lightest weight, it's just under a pound, and it's big enough to create enough charge, even if it's overcast, and still has enough durability that you can toss it into a pack and take it into the backcountry. Now, on a day of good sunlight, it can charge one of these power banks in 3 to 5 hours, and I'm carrying 2 of these. They're also made by Dark Energy. It's called the Poseidon Pro. And guys, I did a ton of research before deciding on these because I'm a huge nerd, and I was very tempted to go with the power banks that the super ultralight thru hikers are using. The most popular ones are made by a company called Nightcore, but they're just not reliably waterproof. So thru hikers have to be super careful with them, keep them in Ziploc bags. A lot of hikers have had issues with them, especially in wet environments. So I was willing to take the extra hit on weight. One of these is about 4 ounces heavier than those super ultralight ones. And for a power bank that's super durable, way more weather resistant. I mean, I heard a story where a hunter lost this thing in the woods and he found it a year later and it still worked and it held the charge from the year prior. So the solar panel and these power banks are a little heavier than the absolute lightest stuff out there, but they're built to be way more durable and more weatherproof, and that's what I want for the situations where I might actually need this. So what is this kit designed to power? Well, you can add or remove batteries depending on what you're using, but in this case I've got AA batteries for NVGs, CR123s for the weapon light and IR laser. I've got some spare AAAs, which could be used for your headset, and then 18 650 batteries, which in this case are for this iRay RH25 thermal device. Thermal eats through batteries. It only lasts 4 hours max on one battery. So I've got 4 of those here, whereas the PVS 31s with AA's, they can last 50 hours when you're using the battery pack. Now, keep in mind those run times are going to go down a little bit in cold weather like right now. So why 2 power banks and why so many batteries? Well, you don't have to take all of this, but with this amount, in ideal conditions, I never have to ration power expenditure at all. And in less than ideal conditions, I've got some extra that I could share. If you're with a group, you could use this kit to keep other people's equipment powered up as well. One more thing you can keep charged, this is a headlamp. The ultralight backpackers use this one. The brand is Nightcore, and I think it's great for this purpose because it weighs almost nothing. It has a red lens, and you can lock it so that it won't accidentally turn on if it gets bumped. And seriously, that's a real issue. I've had a headlamp get bumped and turn on in my chest rig, and I felt like an idiot because it was dark out and all of a sudden I'm standing out, especially under NVGs. So that's a big plus for any time you're moving at night and don't want to be seen. And this light also doesn't have batteries. I just charge it with a USB-C cable directly from the power bank. Side note, if you're rocking NVGs or thermals at night, you want to have those staged in your pack as it gets dark so that you can grab them quickly out of a pocket. However, for any other time, if you want to keep them protected from getting damaged or bumped, I keep these in another waterproof bag and a padded bag. This one is made by Eberly Stock. I don't know if they still make these, but it just happens to be exactly the right size for a set of PVS 31s and this clip-on thermal. Now, something to think about. I think the scenario that's most likely is you're going to be with a group of people. And if you do need all these batteries because you're operating all night, every night, someone else in your group, probably someone on a day shift, they could be responsible for making sure that these batteries are being charged during the day so that you can stay topped off every night as you start your shift or whatever you're doing. Now, could you keep everything charged by yourself on the move with this kit? Yeah, potentially. That's obviously possible. But just giving you food for thought, because in that scenario, you'd have to plan to rest during the day in a relatively safe or hidden area so that you could set this up and keep things charged. Now, back to the amount of stuff here. With this amount of batteries, you've got some buffer. So even if it's overcast or storming, or you're on the move and you can't stop during the day to top off your batteries, you still have plenty of juice to keep using your equipment for a while. Even in the winter, with 4 AA's in your NVG's battery pack and then another 4 spare in this kit, you should be able to get a week's worth of NVG use at night, and that's before using a battery bank to recharge those batteries. A couple other tidbits I'll add. Rechargeable batteries can have different voltage outputs from regular batteries. Now, will that destroy your expensive equipment? I don't know. Some of the manuals say not to do it, and I just really don't want to test it. So I'm going to save you all the time I spent scouring the internet for batteries with the right specs. Pale Blue, that's the best brand of rechargeable batteries that I've found. They all have the right voltage for this equipment, and they all use USB-C cables to charge the batteries directly, which simplifies everything so much. Look how cool this is. I also have a spare radio battery and a spare antenna, just because I've seen antennas break. This radio is a Yaesu. It's a ham radio anyone can get. It's a very durable, weather-resistant model. And if you're not a radio guy, check out radiomadeeasy.com. That dude is super helpful and he really simplifies things for you. And this radio also came with a cable that lets you connect from a USB-C port straight into the radio. However, one thing I found is that it wouldn't charge unless this battery bank was full. And I think it's because I was charging from the USB-C port on the battery bank, which is two-way, meaning it's also where you charge the battery bank from the solar panel. So whenever it's connected to that port, I think what's happening is the charge will go either way, but it's going to go from the higher charge to the lower charge. So because charge only goes out from the regular USB slot, I bought a different cable for the radio that goes from USB-A or the regular USB instead of USB-C and into the radio. If that was confusing, I don't blame you. Now, I'm not a pro on how this stuff works, so if you know more than I do on this topic, you're an electrician, you get this stuff, then help a brother out and let me know in the comments. All right, so how much does this whole kit weigh? Just shy of 4 pounds. Not super light, but not terrible considering you can use it to keep all your kit powered indefinitely. It's definitely the lightest kit I could build while still having some good durability. And of course, you can add or subtract from this depending on how many batteries and spare parts you want to carry. Guys, if you got any tips, good ideas, things to consider, or if you watch this and you're like, whoa, this guy is living in the past, there's a better way to do this, seriously, let me know. Help each other out. And we'll see. Maybe I'll keep making videos if this was helpful. Last thing. I reached out to these companies before posting this video to see if they could give me any discount codes you guys can use since I'm recommending their products. And the ones that respond, I'll put links in the description for all this stuff. That's it, and I'll catch you guys later.